This is live right now. Um, I often don't schedule some of these lives, and I wish I did, but sometimes, my schedule doesn't allow for that, and I try to come live when I'm able. So let's do this. I need to actually change this here. All right, make it public now. All right, I think I needed to change that to public. I didn't do that. Rookie mistake here, but I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are. Usually I try to schedule this in advance. I try to. That's the ideal thing to do, but honestly, my schedule doesn't allow for that most of the time, and that's why I end up just coming online when I'm able. I like to interact with some of you, especially if you're able to, share your thoughts as well. It helps to make the whole stream engaging, and I'm not just talking to myself. That's really the point here. Now, the purpose of this video, really, of this live stream, is to discuss some of the ways in which you can become a pilot. Hey, Matthew, thanks for joining. Hey, Antonio, thanks for joining as well. Tom, good to see you. Good to see you guys joining. I appreciate that. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well as well. Mark, thanks. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I usually try to schedule this. That's the ideal thing to do. But I'll be honest with you guys. My schedule in the past, I would say 2 weeks has been interesting. I was gone for like a week. And even though I still try to make videos in the hotel, it's not always the best. You don't have the lights, you don't have the environment is not well controlled, and I'm just uncomfortable sometimes just making those videos. That's the honest truth about it. But I always like to interact with you guys when I'm able. And for the coming 2 weeks, I would also be gone a lot. And I just felt, I needed to come live. Let me do it right now. I have the time. I'm able to spare about an hour or so to chat with you guys. So I appreciate you guys joining as well. It makes it fun. It makes it feel like, I'm not just talking to myself. Hey, Adaji, thanks for joining as well. So the main purpose of this one is really to talk about, how you can become a pilot. I know some of you may have maybe joined this type of discussion in the past, talking about just the ways in which you can become a pilot. But hey, that's what the channel is all about. The goal is really to inform, educate, and share these resources that has helped me, that has helped other people, that other people have used, and maybe they've been able to achieve that goal. And the most recent, I would say, success stories that I've gotten is really from Speedbird two-way program as well. And that's just to let you know that even if you don't have money, even if you don't have all the resources that you need to pursue this career, just being able to get the right information and doing what it takes, of course, right? Because, for most of these programs that I'll be talking about, they will require that you either, pass the test, pass the interviews, go through all this assessments. And that really comes down to you, right? That comes down to you doing the work. But the first thing is knowing that it even exists, all right? Because if you don't know about it, then there's no way you can figure it. There's no way you can, achieve it. And I hope I'm sounding right. There's so many times I have to work on my audio, and I need to apologize for this, all right? Yesterday, I made a video, and I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but if you have seen it, the audio was quite low. And I'll be honest, like sometimes there's just so many things to push and pull and turn, and I'm not an expert at this, so you have to forgive me. So let's talk about it. If you have questions, please feel free to drop in the chat section. I can see it on screen as well, so I'll try to answer your questions. Again, the goal here is to help and share this information so that you guys benefit and walk away feeling like you've been equipped with new information, new knowledge, or new things you can use in order to pursue this field or this career, if this is what you want to do anyway. So, let's see. I got some notes. Actually, not really notes, more like bullet points. Now, one of the first things I'd like to start with is, in order for you to pursue this field, you first need to, before you even start doing any of the programs, applying to any of the programs, before you start stressing about it, right? How sure are you this is what you want to do? How convinced are you that you are able to go through the thick and thin of the process, right? I'm talking about even the training, the lifestyle, and what flying comes with. Because I'll be honest with you, not a lot of people do have the opportunity to interact with, or not a lot of people have interacted with pilots, right? A lot of times these are things that I think as a young kid myself, I never had anybody that worked in the aviation industry. I never had a friend, uncle, auntie, dad, whatever. None of my immediate family members or friends were in the aviation industry. So how did I get interested, or what sparked my interest in aviation? The thing that really, I guess, got me interested in aviation was I went to the airport. And I remember this was, and I think I've shared this in the past. If you guys have been following my channel for some time, I've shared this in different stories. But I went to an airport and I remember seeing this huge airplane, right? I still remember the picture till now, but at the time I didn't know that it was a 747. Okay. But that's just to tell you, I vividly remember the picture, and just how captivating that moment was for me, that I was able to capture I was 5 years old, by the way, right? So for me to be able to remember till today, the picture, the airline, all of that information, that was how captivated I was at that moment, And I remember asking my parents, like, how does that even, like, who flies that? Like, how does that get in the air? And I remember my parents telling me, oh, they're pilots. And I was like, I want to be a pilot. Now, that was a, childhood dream, I guess. Over time, I first faced my own challenges. I was in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria. For those of you that don't know that, you don't have airports around you with, small planes, and you don't have ability and access to get on an airplane just like that, unless you're wealthy, or maybe your parents are really rich and you are connected and they can, link you up with people in the aviation industry. So there was nobody to really mentor me or guide me and show me the way. And that's why I honestly made this channel. I mean, I think I've said that in the past, but the point here is, what really gave me that conviction, right, that this is what I should do. And sometimes they call it the bug. How did you catch the aviation bug? That's sometimes something they can ask you during interviews too, like, what got you interested in aviation? And mine was so simple and so basic, but at the same time, it's so till today, it moves me when I think about it. Like, I was 5 and I thought, oh, this was what I would do, right? Now, I'll be honest, right? I went on to study computer science in college, and I felt like this wasn't achievable, right? Becoming a pilot. I felt it was I couldn't achieve it because it was so expensive to get into a flight school, and the process and the steps, and I didn't know anything. You could go online, and this was 2008, 2007, right? What happened in 2008, the financial crisis? The world was upside down. There weren't any options to find money or to get loans anywhere. And secondly, the aviation industry was like this, right? Because nobody was even hiring. So the prospect of trying to get loans to go pursue the aviation career wasn't really there, because nobody will give you money for an industry that it was upside down, right? And mind you, 2001, the 9/11, if you guys are familiar with that, right? Those were still on, the effect of that event, or unfortunate event, was still ongoing. So airlines weren't hiring. It wasn't pretty much a bad time to go into aviation. But I finished my college in 2009, right? And I remember that night I had this interaction with a friend of mine, a group of us anyway. We're talking about flying, and he told me, like, his uncle flies for an airline out there in Nigeria. And I thought to myself, I've always wanted to pursue this, but just due to lack of funds, lack of money, I've not been able to do this. Now, I still went online that day and ended up on my phone. I remember I was on my phone, tiny phone screen, internet was terrible, all that, But mind you, there were times along the line, even in college, that I almost left college to start flight training, because the only thing, because I was so interested, right? But the only thing that stopped me from doing that was lack of money. Okay, so when it comes to people sharing their stories and stating the reasons why they can pursue aviation, being money being the main issue, I can relate with that. Now, I'm going to fast forward so that I don't spend too much time telling you all the stories. But the point here is I hope you're finding value in this. If you are, please don't forget to drop a like on it and let me know what your thoughts in the comment section as well. Again, the goal here is to help you. I've done my own, right? I have these experiences, I have this knowledge, but if you don't share your own stories or your own questions, it's hard for me to share my own thoughts, right? Cut long story short, I ended up applying to school, different schools. I ended up getting the acceptance letter from some of the schools, and of course I had to pick the one that I could afford. Now, when I say afford, not that I had all the money, right? And of course I didn't have the money. Fortunately, my parents were able to support me through the process. Okay, but there were times during, right, because this was all back in 2010, 2011 when I started training. There were times when I ran out of money. There were times I didn't have any money and I had to wait few, months to pick up my training again. Why? Because I just didn't have the funds. So the point here is when I say that, my parents supported me, it's not like we had all the money at once. There were times when they would run out of money and then have to wait and, to continue training again. So here's the deal. We know that aviation is expensive. Flight training is expensive. And your ability to be able to go through those steps, those stages of the challenges that you face along the way, right? You need to have that you have to have a strong conviction in yourself that this is what you want to do. Otherwise, you would give up along the way. And this is something that happens to a lot of people even till today. After I finished my training, I became an instructor. I taught people from zero to hero, from zero to their commercial to their flight instructor ratings. I've done those things. And I've seen it day in, day out, how people face challenges and they quit. I've seen that as well. And of course, you see those that also go through the challenges and make it through. So the point here is, before you even start worrying yourself or, trying to raise the funds, right? How sure are you this is what you want to do? Now, once you have that checkbox that you're sure this is really what you want to do, you're determined, and of course you have the ability to achieve it, okay? Then we can start talking about how to find funds or ways in which you can raise the funds or ways in which you can achieve that goal without having to raise the funds yourself. Now, it will cost you money, of course. Why is it going to cost you money? Because training is not going to be cheap. But the point here is, if you have the ability to get into some of these programs that I'm going to share in, right, maybe it becomes something you can achieve. Now, the next thing that I would like to mention is, because I know that, being on the internet, you have access to a lot of people from different parts of the world. And that is the benefit of the internet. That's great. Or doing a live stream like this. So I know that a lot of people from different countries are watching this as well. And I know how difficult it can be from people from certain regions. I grew up in Nigeria and I know how difficult it is to get scholarships, to get programs, to get loans. I know how difficult that is. I know people from India. I have friends from different parts of the world, especially with aviation. That's the good thing about aviation, by the way. You meet a lot of people from different parts of the world. Norway, UK, US, Asia, or different continents, right? The point here is every continent, every region, every country has its, pros and cons, okay? And in a situation where you are in a place where there aren't any opportunities or as much opportunities, it can become difficult for you to achieve your goal. That is the honest truth. And a lot of times people ask me questions like, how can they find scholarships? How can they do this? And trust me, it's not like I have any superpower, right, that helps me to find, or that I use to find some of these programs. It's all online for most of it. Now, there are occasions where people would actually reach out to me and share an information that they have or that they acquired. That happens as well. So, but that's very far in between. Most of the time, it's all online. Unfortunately, in certain regions, Africa being number one on the list, sharing just a lot of opportunities, and that honestly can be saddening because a lot of people aspire to be pilots as well. I mean, I was there. And I know that there weren't a way for me to raise loans, right? There wasn't a way for me. There wasn't any way for me to get into a cadet program and all that. But I remember looking at those programs back then, but none of them were accessible to me. I mean, for most part. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a break to breathe here. Let's see. Hey, Adaji, sorry if you're still on. I see you said I chatted you on Instagram almost 3 months ago, but no response to my chat. I'm sorry about that. I have to let you know that sometimes I get a lot of messages and I try to catch up, and I'm sure I should have responded to you. If it's 3 months, I'm sure I would have said something, at least responded to whatever question you had. Now, follow-up questions that you might have sent could have been buried below, all right, in other messages. So please, you can always send me a message again so that it goes to the top of the list of messages. That's the only way you can really get me on that. But I respond to people on Instagram. All right. Why can't you borrow unsecured loans in the UK? I'm not sure if you can do that in the US either. In the US also, you can get unsecured loans, all right, in the US. I can't tell you why you can't do that in the UK. It's strange. I thought that you could do that. But I actually, let's take it back. I think I know why. Being aviation industry being what it is, it can be very hard for these employers or for these banks to make sure that you will go through training successfully, and that's why they shy away from loaning to aspiring pilots, especially knowing that you haven't started at all. Now, sometimes, let's say you've started your private, you've gotten your private, and you have some track record to show that you've kind of established yourself in that path. It might be easier to get loans, even in the US, by the way. All right, and that's why if you are looking for loans, you have to sometimes go to organizations or banks or financial institutions that are familiar with the aviation industry, and they probably work with airlines. That makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I think it can be a competitive process. That's what I mean. All right, to get a loan, it can be tough. K26, I've been selected for an airline cadet program, but I have to start next year, so I can't finish my bachelor's degree because I would need 6 more months. What should I do? Wow, that's a tough spot. Getting into a cadet program can be tough. All right, and then having to then give it up is something that I wouldn't want you to do. I mean, personally, it's up to you to decide on what's best for you, okay? But here's what I would do. If I were in your shoes, I can put my school on hold. I can always finish my bachelor's anytime. I can finish depending on what program you're in, depending on what the school allows, right? You may be able to do it online if possible. If they don't allow you to do it online, maybe I'll put my program on hold to go do my training. My training is only going to take me about 18 months, right? To finish your training from zero to your commercial ATPL. That's what I would do, because the chances of me getting into that program again can be very slim. Okay, that's me. All right, but do what's best for you. From Matthew, do you think as someone in Europe, should I at the moment pursue a college degree which lasts 4 years, or work and save for pilot training? This is, again, very similar to the previous one. If you have to save money to pursue pilot training, depending on what you're currently doing, if you're making money already and you're making good money that you can save pretty quickly to fund your flight training and get it done as soon as possible, then I would do that. On the other hand, if it's going to take you a long time, I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 years to save up money, then you might as well just do your degree, right? Get your degree done so that you don't waste that time. Yeah, that's my own thought about it. Again, your situation might be different, but that's what I would do. Nazmul Islam, talk about the scholarship and waivers as an international student. Scholarships, international student. I think I've covered this in different videos. there isn't much I can say about that. Most scholarships are not open to international students. I'll be honest about that. That's the challenge. That's what I was sharing earlier. And by the way, I'm going to pick up with what I was going to share earlier, okay? But the main topic of this video, when it comes to scholarships for international students, I'm going to get to it in the video. So let's move on. Just found your YouTube channel. Really want to become a pilot for Singapore Airlines. Well, you have the Singapore Airlines career program, right? You can always apply to that. The other thing also is maybe you have the funds to train. Of course, Singapore Airlines is one of the best airlines out there. So, do what you have to do to get into it. And best of luck to you, of course. Of course, if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. Hello from Bangladesh. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Kid26, man, you're amazing. Thanks for all the value you give us for free. Awesome. I'm glad that you're finding value in this. All right. So let's pick up with the conversation. So once you're sure that this is what you want to pursue, right, you now have the next steps. The next steps will be, okay, how do you get the funds, or how do you get trained to become a pilot? How do you achieve that? Okay, there are 5 things or maybe 6 things you can do. Now, remember, all of these things I'm going to be sharing with you are things I talk about on this channel already. And that is why, hopefully, if you go through some of my videos in the past, you may be able to find specific areas that I touch on this on this topic itself, okay? But these bullet points that I have right now are things that I already talk about on my channel for most part. So the first thing I would like to say is, in order to answer Nazmul, I believe that was you that asked about scholarship. Yep, Nazmul Islam. In order to be able to answer you, I'm going to talk about the scholarships first, because that is one of the ways you can become a pilot, of course, right? It's common sense to know that, if you find the right program that you qualify for, and you're able to get awarded the scholarship, then it may save you some money along the way. Now, understand that not all scholarships are actually, most scholarships, okay, will not fund your training from zero to maybe becoming a commercial pilot, from like everything. Most scholarships don't do that. And I'm talking about specific scholarships that, for example, the ones in the US, the ones in the UK, they would generally fund some of the training. For example, they may give you a few flight hours, okay, to help you in achieving your private pilot license, or maybe your commercial pilot's license, or your instrument training. Or some will give you cash awards or cash money, okay, towards your training. So they need to see that you are already in training. And this is where, excuse me, in order for you to do this, right, scholarships, to be specific, because that's what I'm talking about now. In order for you to get the scholarships, generally you want to already be in the program. And this is where it can be difficult, because if you don't have the money to start, how can you start? Okay, so you have to have some commitment already, because most times they would prefer to hand that money or those hours to someone that is already in the process. The chances of you getting selected or being awarded the scholarship increases when you are already in the process. Like maybe you already started your private, maybe you're on your commercial. Oh my God, excuse me. My throat is dry. All right, so the point here is it's easier once you're in to get those scholarships. But when you're starting out, it can be a lot harder because you have no record to go by. What if they give you the money and then you don't use it? That's an opportunity for someone else that could have, for someone to have used, but you then just burned it because you didn't use it, right? The other thing is, as an international student, which I think I need to be specific on at this point, as an international student, understand that your chances of getting awarded a foreign scholarship, okay, not that it doesn't happen, it's just that the chances are very, very slim. Now, here are some scholarship programs that you can think about. And this is not also common, all right, but it happens occasionally. Manufacturers like Boeing, Airbus, and which other one? Embraer. They sometimes would award scholarships to people in different regions. but this is how they do it. They generally would award those scholarships. So, for example, they may say, okay, they want to donate $50,000 or $100,000 to an organization this is an example, to an organization in Nigeria, a non-profit organization. And then it's now up to the non-profit organization to disburse that money to qualified candidates that are interested in aviation. So here's the problem with that process. When that money gets to that organization in, say, Nigeria or whatever country, it doesn't matter. It happens occasionally. It's so random that you don't know when it happens, all right? But when it happens, this organization targets people that are already, or I would say, that have some record to go with it. So, for example, if you are somebody that you're interested in aviation, okay, they want to see that you're already doing something in aviation. So whether you are, maybe a cabin crew, or maybe you are working on an aviation degree, those are the ways in which they can test to know that this person is truly interested in aviation. So let's, when you submit your application for those scholarships, for example, they look into it and tell, okay, this person already has some track record in the aviation industry. It shows they're interested in this. Then they get more points along the way, if that makes sense. Of course, sometimes you may have to take some tests, sometimes you may have to write a letter, things like that. But the point here is having something in aviation already improves your chances of getting those type of scholarships. Now, if you are in a situation where you don't have a lot of opportunities around you, right, then maybe you can start out by just getting into the aviation industry, becoming a flight attendant, right? A cabin crew. Maybe it's becoming an aircraft dispatcher. Maybe it's becoming aircraft maintenance technician, right? Maybe it's going to get a degree in aviation. Because when you are in that environment, your chances starts to increase. You start to get to know people. You start to network with people of similar interests. And that's how you can hopefully find your way to the cockpit or to the flight deck. But if you're just, you're not in the aviation industry at all, and you are not doing anything to actively pursue that, it can be hard to just get awarded right from the get-go without any aviation ties. So I hope this makes sense. So for you international students, think about ways you can get into the aviation world. Even if you don't have the money to pursue flight training right away, get into the aviation environment, a degree in it and some qualification in it that puts you in the aviation world, and then you can start to your chances starts to increase over time. That is what I'm going to say about that. Now, like I said, with scholarships, know that you can't always expect the scholarship to fund all your training. They will generally give you some partial funds. They might give you some hours to help you. They might give you some, maybe training, but that's it. They won't sponsor you from 0 to hero. So that's where it's very important for you to have that that network of potential, I would say, connections that can help you in the aviation industry. That goes a long way. All right, let me see. Did I miss anything here? Let's see. How is it to switch from Lufthansa to United as a pilot? So Lufthansa, for example, that question it has so many things to talk about on it, all right, when it comes to switching from airlines like that, because you have to deal with two different countries, all right, so there's that to talk about. But switching itself, flying is flying, right? If you're a pilot for United or you're a pilot for Lufthansa, you can always switch. It's easy because flying is flying. Nothing changes when it comes to that. I hope that makes sense. But I think what is more complicated is how do you change your license? How do you convert your license, from one body using, for example, using the CAA or EASA, right? Changing to FAA. That can be a process, So that I'm not an expert at that. I'll be honest about that, But the flying itself is flying. So there's no There's not much on that. I just found you a few weeks ago. Could you tell us about your journey, how you ended up where you are today? That would really take us away from the purpose of this video, and I think I already shared some of that. But it's something I definitely would. I've mentioned some of that, my history and how I got into the aviation. I've shared it even at the beginning of this live as well. So I wouldn't want to spend too much time on that. But like I said, I started my training in 2010. Finished it in 2012, became an instructor as well. Started instructing. I instructed for about 3 years and maybe 4 years. 3 years actually. Yeah, give or take. And instructed, built my hours. During that time, I became what do you call it? A chief pilot, an assistant chief pilot, and eventually started with the regionals in the U.S. So I flew for the wholly owned American Airlines in the US. Airline in the US. I flew for them for about 4.5 years. Then I started with United, and now I fly for FedEx. So I'm actually with FedEx now. But the point here is, this is not really for me. This is more to hopefully share the things that has helped me along the way. All right, to guide you guys. All right, my parents have a fixed budget for my college education, and flight school is very expensive. I was thinking of South Africa and others, but others say it's only cheap for nationals. What do I do? You have options when it comes to training. Okay, you can always look at, like you mentioned South Africa already, so I'm guessing you're doing your work. Definitely, it's one of the places to go. And have you looked at places in the US? Have you looked at places in the Middle East? Middle East is very expensive. I won't. That's just my thoughts anyway. But I would say US. I don't know much about South Africa, so I can't really tell you what the differences are. But I know in the US there's a lot of options of, if you want to spend $100,000 plus on training, or you want to spend less, you have a lot of options in the US. So, and I can attest to that. But I would say, you maybe do more research, and also the other thing is, since they have a fixed budget, right? What can you get done, or with the amount of money that they have, what can you get done with that? I think that is what you really want to do, and hopefully go for it. It can be intimidating. And the other thing also is, when you say fixed budget, there are options. At least there's some money right there, right? If you have some money, get started. That's my thought anyway. Because when you start, as you go along the way, you find the ability to achieve it or to finish it. That's my thought process about it. It might sound crazy, but if you really want to do it, you sometimes have to do crazy stuff, right, to get it done. Matthew, you're welcome. Anish, can you maybe do more videos for Aer Lingus? I'm 17. Finally, I can apply to you as well. Absolutely. I know the next one that was next year. I don't exactly know the date when they would run their cadet program again, but I would definitely consider doing that. But here's something I also want to share with you guys, right? I know that I sometimes target specific airlines and talk about their cadet programs, but I want you to know that most of the information I share, you can actually learn, even though you're not applying to, say, the airline that I'm talking about in that particular video. The information can still be applied. So that means you can apply the same knowledge that I'm using, or the tips that I'm giving on one particular airline, you can apply to another airline. But I know that sometimes their processes can be slightly different, but at the end of the day, they're all looking for pilot competencies, and we talk about all of that every time, let's see. So yeah, but I'll definitely make more videos on that. Anish, Brian, your setup looks nice. What camera do you use? I use the A6400, the Sony Alpha 6400, A6400. That's what I use. Thanks by the way. All right. It's the same camera I've been using for a while, but sometimes I'm still not an expert at all this stuff, right? But that's what I use anyway. Sometimes just changing settings here and there and trying to figure it out. Would you join Lufthansa or Swiss as a pilot if you need? If I had a choice, personally, I think Lufthansa is what I would go for. That's me. But I mean, there's so many reasons why you choose one airline over the other. So I wouldn't want to spend too much time, trying to because there are pros and cons. Every airline has its pros and cons. For example, if you live in a base that Swiss Airlines operate out of, then you might want to go for Swiss because you already live in that area, compared to maybe Lufthansa that might have another base that doesn't work for you. So there's so many areas to it. But the point here is, personally, just because I like Lufthansa more than Swiss, that's just me. I may be wrong. Completed up to solo. Oh, second solo. That's great. Wow. So you're already in the process. I think, with what you have, I don't know where you started your training. This from Nazmul. All right. I don't know where you started your training, but if you already did your solo, you're already onto something there. You're definitely in the right path, and you already have something under your belt, Prince James, can you give us a little understanding of how you became a pilot? Like I think I already covered that at the beginning of this live. I've said it earlier. It was just, I had the support of my parents, and there were times I ran out of money, right? And I just had to keep coming back. Okay, so it took me a little longer than I expected or than I wanted, but that was just it. It was just tenacity and the desire to want to achieve it, right? And that's why I said, sometimes you don't have to have $90,000 saved up or $100,000 saved up, but you have to have a plan anyway for how that money can trickle in. Hopefully, over time, start with 10,000 and slowly move. Slowly build on that. So consider it like a modular training. Okay. What school did you attend in the United States? I attended Phoenix Aviation in Florida. Would it be a good idea to move to an EU flight school and do it cheaper? Absolutely, if you can. Anish, that's to you. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If that is what gets you your dream, you go for it. Okay, that is me. All right. If you have the ability and you have the funds, like you said, I believe you said you had some fixed budget for it, and you have a school that can let you complete that. Now, understand that when the school tells you that you can finish with, say, 100,000 or 50,000, always plan to go a little extra, because things will happen, delays, maintenance, you may be sick, things like that, right? So many delays can come up. And flight training is like any other thing that requires consistency. If you stop, there's a chance that when you come back, you spend more time and money to get back to speed. So that process of you trying to get back means that you're spending more money on it, right? It could cost you more money. So keep that in mind. All right, I need to move on. I'm going to answer the rest of the questions again as I continue. Let's move on to the next option. Next option, right, for those of you that are looking for ways. The first one I've mentioned already is scholarships, all right? If you're looking for scholarships, like I mentioned, they have their pros and cons. Sometimes you're in an area where you don't have a lot of options. Sometimes the scholarship won't fund everything, and majority of the time they won't fund all your training. But hey, if you can get $1,000 award, you get a few hours award here awarded to you here and there, it all adds up and can help you achieve your goal. But the next one is loans or financial aid, depending on where you're from. All right. Again, I know some places or some regions would have the inability or the limited access to loans and financial aid. I get that. Again, I've been there, but that is just, it's an option for those that can take advantage of it. All right. But be careful when it comes to taking loans. Watch out for the fees they charge, watch out for the interest rate, and watch out for the repayment process. Okay. Those three things can end up, a $50,000 loan can easily become $100,000 because, of the terms and conditions in which that loan was issued to you. So make sure you do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not really an expert when it comes to how they underwrite loans and all that, but I understand the process. I know about the process, right? And what I would tell you is, before you get a loan, right, make sure you understand, especially the repayment factor, okay? Generally speaking, when you want to get into some of these programs, I think it is often better, my personal opinion, if you have a way to get a fixed payment, a fixed loan, a fixed interest rate loan for your education, for your training. That is the best. What that means is that the interest rate that you would have on it is fixed. It doesn't change. That is one thing that you want to keep in mind. Unfortunately, a lot of times, most of this would change over time. The interest rates may go up, may go down, and that can become difficult, especially when it comes back to when you pay back. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're taking these loans, keep in mind that the duration that they give you to start paying back can sometimes be unrealistic. Okay, depending on where you are, if you're in the US, if you're in the UK, sometimes they give you unrealistic repayment clauses, and the reality is that it takes you about 18 months to finish your training, right? To finish everything. Before you start working and start making enough money to start paying back that loan, it takes some time, right? So if there isn't enough time built into the loan, the package, or the contract, okay, to start making enough money to pay back, it might be difficult, and things might escalate pretty quickly. So you don't want that. So the point here is, or my recommendation is, to go to established organizations, all right, that are familiar with flight training, that understand the aviation industry. And there's so many of them around. And this is where some cadet programs come into play, all right, which I'm going to mention later. But there's some cadet programs, or cadet programs that you are required to make to pay for the training. But then it's like you go through the process, you go through the assessments, you get through the what do you call it? You get selected into the program, but then you still have to qualify for the financial aid or the loan. Okay, and the benefit of those ones is that it's already structured, or there's an agreement from the financial institution with the airline. So whoever is providing the loan to the airline so that they can fund that training, all right, through that program, there's already an agreement, and they know exactly what a typical or an average person will be able to do, or how long it will take an average person to finish the training. So there aren't any surprises for you. But I also know that in different regions, in different parts of the world, this does not exist. And this is where, if you choose to go to a bank and you have a collateral, okay, so you're securing the loan with a collateral or something, with a land, with a house, whatever that may be, make sure that they understand, or hopefully make sure what you're signing up for is something that is realistic. Because if you start training and within 1 year they expect you to start paying back a lot of money, then you will find yourself in much serious problems, right? Because you're probably still in training and they're already expecting you to start paying back. That would not work. So that's something to keep in mind. That's something to keep in mind with loans. Like I said, I'm not an expert with that, but I just have the knowledge and understanding of how it works. And I would say that do your research really well before you get into it. All right. So again, just to do a quick recap, I've talked about scholarships. I've talked about loans or using financial aid at this point. That's what I'll mention on that. Let me see if I need to answer some questions here before we continue. What job attributes have improved now that you're FedEx? Great question, Brian. I think in order to answer this question, okay, I think it's going to be a separate video, but here I'm just going to give you some highlights. All right. So when it comes to flying cargo and flying passengers, okay, they are two different worlds. Even though you're flying, right, that's still the job, you're flying, but the things you deal with are different. Okay. Now, without making this explanation too long, when you're flying cargo, right, you don't deal with people, right? You deal with people that you work with, maybe the captain, the first officer, maybe the load master, whoever is, or the manager who is loading the airplane for you and all that. But you don't deal with like passengers. You don't deal with a lot of customers. Your customers are, you are not physically there, if that makes sense. Unlike flying passengers where you're actually being seen and all that. So there is the wall. If you're looking for a place where, and I have to think about this clearly before I say it, flying cargo is less stressful. Let's put it out here. That is just the honest truth about it. All right. When you fly cargo, it's less stressful. Now, there's the downside to it. With cargo, you're working more at night. Okay. So that's something you need to keep in mind. With passengers, you fly more during the day, but then there's more stress associated with that. But also, I'll be honest with that. When it comes to flying passengers, that is where you're seen, right? If you're that like type of person that likes to be seen, to be known, that is where you see that, because you walk around the airport in your pilot uniform and all that stuff. So it's cool, right? But with cargo, you don't get all that. So the prestigious and that thing that sometimes drew you to the aviation world, you may not get that with cargo. That is the truth about it. But with passengers, you get that a lot. So anyway, that's just there's a lot to say about the two parts. All right, it's two different because it's a different world. Okay, there's a lot of things to cover on it, and like I said, it's a whole new video entirely. But which one is better? I'm sure maybe that will be the next thing. Which one is better? I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It all depends. All right, so many factors. What do you want? What would you prefer? The environment you're in. Where do you live? The pros and cons can almost be equal, if that makes sense. All right, let's see. This from Nasmo. Can you please suggest few flight schools which are cheap but also provide good quality training as well as the country as okay. So Nasmo, if I'm going to answer your question, I think I want you to understand that cheap is very relative, right? For example, $100,000 could be cheap to someone, and to another person it's very expensive, and 50,000 can be expensive to somebody and it's very cheap to, you get the point. So the point here is it's very hard for me to start recommending schools, because what is cheap? Like, what do you mean by cheap? Is this something that will get you from zero to finishing your training with 50,000, which I don't think is possible, right? I mean, nothing is impossible. Let me say that again. Nothing is impossible, but it's going to be quite hard and difficult, especially as an international student. One thing that you need to understand is I'm very familiar with the US system and also the UK system, okay? Some of these schools, right, they operate in these two regions, right? Skyborn is one, and in the US, you have a lot of options when it comes to expensive schools, and also you have some cheap schools that are available to you. So it comes down to what can you afford, right? And I've actually shared a video on my YouTube page where I talked about how you can find schools as an international student. So I think if you go to the search function of the YouTube on my channel and you put in international student, for example, I'm sure one of the videos that will come up is how you can find schools as an international student in the US. The reason is because not all schools. So for example, a school might be cheap in the US, but they do not offer the necessary documents for international students to train, and that is the F1, M1 documents that you need for immigration purposes and all that. So the point is, it's a whole set of video entirely on that. Okay. Do you fly the 777? No, I don't fly the 777. I wish I flew the 777 though. I'm on the Airbus. I'm on the Airbus 300. Quite old airplane, but it gets the job done. But I'm not on the 777. Why do European pilots earn much less? I think that is the contract. Okay, it's the environment. K26. It's the environment out there. Over here in the US, I think there's a stronger pilot union representation, and they're able to honestly just try to ask, or I guess, what's the word? Strike a good deal. Let me put it that way. That's the best way I can put it. Strike a good deal, and that is maybe better than the EU region. That is my guess. Okay. What is your view on Liberty Aviation or Aeronautical Science? Great. I've actually looked into that program before. All right. Absolutely. Because with that program, I believe you can also get your degree you get your degree and you get your flight training done. So thumbs up. I have no issues with it. I can't remember what it costs now, because this is something I've looked in the past. But it's definitely a good program. I have a few friends that, well, I will say colleagues, I won't say friends, that have gone through their training in the past. So yeah, absolutely. You're the most genuine and honest pilot on YouTube. I know. It's easy to see that you're a good person. Keep it up. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. At the end of the day, one thing I'll say is that you guys are the ones that make this enjoyable. When you have questions, when you leave your questions, I try to answer them. Now, I know that sometimes you guys will leave comments. I don't get to it as soon as I should. And that's because you have to think about it this way. I have a daughter. I'm a husband. I go to work. I try to work out. I try to do things. And I still try to do this as well. And by the way, I have two channels. But that's just to tell you that there's a lot going on, and it's not easy for me to sit down and start replying to comments. And sometimes you get a lot of comments, you get messages. So I try my best to respond and answer your questions. But that's why sometimes I come live, because when I come live, I try to, I get this interaction. I get to answer your questions, right from the moment it's asked. Let's see, Karan 1 2 3 4. How many days a week would you recommend to go to flight school to finish training pretty quickly, but slow enough to where you can still process everything? Hey, great question. So, in order to go through training and not have extensive, not spend extensive time doing it, right? An efficient way to train, at least fly 3 times a week. So in a span of 7 days, fly at least 3 times a week. And the other days you're not flying, do your grounds and whatever theoretical knowledge things you need to do that. Now, understand that it all depends on the structure of the program. Some programs would structure your training in such a way that they do the theoretical knowledge aspect first, okay, where they do all the exams, they do all the ground schools, they do all that stuff in maybe 6 months. And then once you finish all of that, especially in the EU region, the UK region and all that, sometimes they make you do it that way, where they do all the grounds, you get all the ATPR done, and then you start to fly, Either one works, right? Whatever program, especially with an integrated training. If you're doing modular training, then it's best, in my opinion, to fly at least, if possible, 3 times a week. So for example, if you're doing a modular training and you have, this is just an example, you have $20,000, you know that your $20,000 can finish your private. What I would do is I would put that money into it, okay, to finish my private, and dedicate the time so that I can do it as fast as possible and not spend extra money. And I'll do grounds as many times, as much as I can, well in advance, so that I knock out all the grounds, okay, do most of it at the beginning with an instructor if that is what is required. Once I'm done with all the grounds, take the written tests, get it all out of the way, then I'm going to move on to the flying part. So at least I want to fly 3 times a week so that I stay current, I stay sharp, and I can progress through the lessons as fast as possible. That is what I would do. But again, every program, every school has its own structure, and that may change things. All right. So I've talked about scholarships, I've talked about financial aid, I've talked about loans, right? The next one here will be the cadet programs. All right, cadet programs, this is something that I talk about a lot on my channel. Now, the benefit of a cadet program is that, one, or the benefits, there are a lot of benefits, all right, to cadet programs. Reason being that one of them is that job security that you have. For most part, okay? For most part, because you have to understand that not all cadet programs guarantee that you get a job at the end of it, all right? There's so many programs out there that they don't guarantee that you have a job. And you have to kind of understand why they don't guarantee that. The reason why they don't guarantee that you have a job is, what if you don't finish the training? Or what if you don't perform well during training? They wouldn't want to hire you just because you've gone through that cadet program. No, they wouldn't want to hire you for that. So it is very important to remember that, yes, a cadet program might have offer you the ability to work for the airline, but there are no guarantees to it. But that's just one of the benefits, okay? Because when you go through that program and you do well, your chances of getting hired by that same airline increases. Now, that also comes with a con. So the pro, like I mentioned, is what I said. But then the con is, if for any reason you want to leave to another airline, maybe that pays more or that has better opportunities or that works just better for you, then you are on the hook for the money or whatever your agreement says. So there's always that clause or that restriction that you experience when you go through some of these cadet programs. But let's focus on the 2 main types of cadet programs that we have. We have the fully sponsored program. Maybe 3 types actually. Fully sponsored program, where they will sponsor you from 0 to you get all your ratings and license and everything, and then they hire you, right? An example, the Speedbird program is one. There's so many other ones out there. The second one is the partially sponsored programs. If you think about the partially sponsored programs, those will require you to pay maybe 50% or pay half of it, or you pay something, right? So there's that partial sponsorship that goes with it. Okay. An example of that would be Lux Air. Okay. Those ones I talk about on my channel. The next one would be not sponsored, not partially sponsored. They're just a cadet program. And an example of those are common in the US, in Canada, some are in the EU region, okay, in the UK region or EU region. And those ones, I don't talk about them often. I don't even mention them on my channel. Why? Because you are either having to get a loan for it, which is, it's like, yeah, it's a cadet program that you go through, but it's like they're connecting with a bank, you know, and you still have to go through the typical process that somebody else would go through, right, to get through, to get selected in terms of vetting if you can afford it and all that stuff. So personally, I don't talk about those type of cadet programs. And I know that sometimes I get comments from people that want me to talk about some cadet programs, especially in the US. But honestly, I just feel like you still need to have the money, or you have to qualify. Even if you meet do the tests and you pass all the tests and all that, you still have to meet the financial requirements. Okay. And that is why I don't talk about them. But I focus more on the partially funded programs or partially sponsored programs and the fully sponsored programs. Those are the ones I talk about majorly. And that's because, hey, I know how difficult it is to get money, and I hope that, you know, by these tips and information I share, you guys are able to use that information and you can achieve your goal. Now, these programs, the downside, okay, of all of these programs, sometimes they run, especially the fully sponsored and the partially sponsored ones, they only run once a year. So you have to be ready to, you have to meet the requirements, of course, to apply, but also you have to be ready, and hopefully you can go through the stages, because they can be difficult to get into. That is the reality of it. All right, so I'm looking at your comments here. I'm entering next year. This is why I asked. Thanks for your knowledge. You're welcome. Anish, the A300 is my favorite old gen Airbus. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, the A300 is an interesting airplane, you know. All right, let's see. Maybe a stupid question, but there are no stupid questions. All right, understand that is why this is here. You know, the goal is to educate and inform and enlighten. And hey, know that I learn along the way as well. There are times you guys will ask some questions that I'm like, I don't know, but I'll look it up, and I learn along the way. So there are no stupid questions. Please always feel free. Always encourage everybody, when you join, feel free to ask your questions. There are no stupid questions. Nobody's here to judge you. Know that for a fact. I'm not here to act like I know it all, because I don't. Okay. And if I don't know the answer to the question, I'll tell you I don't as well. So please always know that. All right. It's definitely important, because I know what it is to something you don't have, right? You value it a lot. Okay. I didn't have this. I remember when I was looking for just how to, sorry, I need to drink water. I remember when I was going through this, you know, stage where I was looking for somebody to connect with that can show me the way and tell me how to do it and how to go about doing things. I didn't have that. So I value what I am doing for my younger self, if that makes sense. I value what I'm doing right now for my younger self, even though I can't go back in time and get this same thing, right? But I remember just being in that stage and phase of life where I didn't have things like this, and being able to shed lights and just encourage, even if that's all you get from this, okay? Even if that's all you get from my channel, just the encouragement, okay? It's something. All right, let's see. So maybe a stupid question. No stupid questions. How can I find a wife who is willing to live this difficult family lifestyle? You know what? I didn't even read the full question from the get-go. Yeah, you know why I'm laughing? Because I'm living it right now. You know, it's so funny. I wish I could ask my wife to come and chime in on this one if she's saying it. But it is it is a unique lifestyle. I'll be honest about that. It is not the typical. I mean, I talk to my friends that are in the IT world and they tell me how they work from home and how some of them have 2 jobs just working from home. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I can't do that. Why? Because you have to show up to fly, and sometimes you're gone for a week, sometimes you're gone for 2 weeks. Now that's quite uncommon, but like depending on the airline and the operation, sometimes you're gone a week at a time, and that is not uncommon. Okay, that is not uncommon. So definitely one of the important things you want is to have somebody that can that understands the lifestyle that this comes with. I don't know if you guys saw a video that I made on Pilot Medical. I shared that video a few days ago, and I talked about, one of the things that I talked about is mental health, right? And it is very important that, because if the family is not well put together, it's going to put a lot of stress on you, especially you might be thousands of miles away from home, right? So, it's important to have that conversation for sure. How did you get to know yours? I'm still figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out. Can you tell us a story mid-video break? Absolutely. I don't know what kind of story, but let's see. Let me answer this next question. Would you sell 25K investment to start flight school and miss out on the potential growth, or wait until you come? Oh, wow. That's a great question. So here's the deal, right? Your 25K investment, okay, let's be realistic. What will it get you, okay, in training? If it can finish your private pilot's training, let's just assume you're starting from zero, okay? If it can finish your pilot's training, that means, which I believe it can, of course, that investment funded that, okay? And if it's a dream of yours to become a pilot, you are somewhat, I wouldn't say you're halfway, but you are definitely well on the way to achieving it. So if you have that 25K investment, okay, and let's assume that you've exhausted every other means of raising money, and that's one of the ways that you can get to achieve it, then if flying is what you want to do, then I'll definitely pursue that. I will use that money for my training. That's what I would do. On the other hand, if you feel like, flying is something that you're not really sure about, it's cool, and because a lot of people just, think it's cool, then maybe don't, and here's something I would encourage you to do. Take a little bit of money, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $500, 500 pounds, whatever that may be. I think it's 25K, right? But whatever currency that may be, go take a flight training, go take a lesson, what they call a discovery flight, okay? Just go on a discovery flight and see if this is what you want to really do and pursue, okay? And you may not have to sell the entire 25K, maybe just a little bit out of it, to kind of just see that this is to test your own abilities and your own, conviction that, is this really what you want? Even if it's a 1K that you took out of that 25K, it may be something that enlightens you, either to encourage you to sell everything and then use that money for your training, or it helps you to be sure that, what, I'm just gonna go do something else or keep doing what I'm doing already. Hope that makes sense. All right, what textbooks can you get actually relating to ground school? Absolutely, great question. All right, so if you're in the US, I'm not sure where you are, Prince James, but if you're in the US or if you're in other parts of the world, honestly, even if you're not in the US, but I think this one will apply to people that want to train under the FAA curriculum. I would say that you use the FAA website. So if you go to the FAA website, actually, I can pull that up, faa.gov. Because I go to this website a lot, and I often look at different books that are available. Pilot and certificate record, pilot certification. I'm actually trying to find it for you right now. MN certification. Just a second here. Testing and. It's funny, when you need it, you can't find it. When you don't need it, you see it everywhere. Did they move all those things away from here? No, they didn't move it. I am just not finding it. Yeah, but I was going to share the link with you through the chat. But the FA website does have a lot of materials, that you can start using, and for free, by the way. Pilot training. Okay. I'm going to share this one here. I'm sure you're probably familiar with this, all right? I just shared it in the comment section there. But if you go to that pilot training study materials, there are tons of books. So you see pilot schools, you see, but I think the one you want to focus on is the aircraft. No, not the aircraft. Aviation handbooks. And actually, maybe I should just share this one because this is more specific. Oh, nice. Okay. That one, that page has, all the stuff you need to know. For example, the AIM, Aeronautical Information Manual, all that stuff. You get a lot of information from here. But the handbook is what you want to focus on, which is the airplane flying handbook is one. Definitely you get a lot from that. And this is all for free. Instrument flying handbook, depending on what stage you are. Okay. All right. I think the last point that I want to cover is I've already talked about scholarships. Okay. I've already talked about loans or financial aid. I've talked about career programs. Okay. The last one here is joining the military. I think I covered this, and I think let me do that. I'm not sure if that moved. All right. Joining the military is definitely an option, okay? But that often requires some commitment. That's what a lot of people, especially in the US anyway, that's what they do. So if you join the military, you're not guaranteed that you would fly an airplane sometimes, because it all depends on the test and your score and all that, But the point here is they will train you, and as long as you do well, they might get you, they will put you on a nice airplane, nice jet and all that. You spend maybe 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years, depending on how long you want to commit to the military, and then you come out and fly for the airlines. People do that, so it's definitely an option. Okay, now this last one that I'm going to mention here, which is to work at a flight school, I think, or work at a flight school, at an airport, work in an aviation industry. I already kind of mentioned or alluded to that at the beginning of this live, that if you want to pursue aviation, put yourself in an aviation environment, whether it's in a school, whether it's in the airport, whether it's in a job or a field like that is in aviation. So like becoming an aircraft maintenance technician, a flight attendant, or a cabin crew. Put yourself in that environment. It would expose you to a lot of things, knowledge, information, experiences. With those experiences, or those people, right, those connections, you're able to set yourself up for success. And actually, I need to mention, I can't remember, I wouldn't mention his name now, but he was a flight attendant for United, right? And he started, that was how he got into the aviation world. And he said he always wanted to be a pilot, but just didn't have the means to do it. But after he got into United and started working for them as a flight attendant, he was like, you know what? I want to pursue this. I'm willing to go take a loan and do whatever I have to do, because you have either a stronger conviction that this is what you want to do and you're sure that this is what you want to pursue, or you are like, you know what, maybe this is not really for me, right? So you decide based on that, and the cost to figure that out wasn't, it's not $100,000, right? You haven't started your training and then halfway through you realize that, oh no, this is not what I want to do. So the point here is starting in that aviation environment gives you the ability to achieve that. Hey guys, if you guys have found value in this one, please don't forget to drop a like on the video. It goes a long way. Always remember that I try to come live here and there. I don't plan it, right? But when I have the time and the energy to do it, I'll do it, but the goal here is to share this information, encourage you, let you see that this is possible. Different challenges will come up, different struggles, different obstacles will be in your way, but it is very important to continue to find those opportunities and not to give up, right? Because if I had given up, I don't know what I'll be doing right now, to be honest with you, right? Because sometimes I always ask myself, like, what would I do if I mean, maybe I'll be in IT. I'll be doing something in IT for sure, maybe. But I definitely, no job is perfect. I'm not going to try to paint like, oh, everything is great and the job is perfect. No job is perfect. There's always certain things that would make you that make you kind of like question, like, can this be better, or just make you feel that way. Every job will make you feel that way, but overall, when I look back, would I do it again? Absolutely. And as long as I continue to have that conviction in my mind, then I think I did the right thing, and that's why I'm here encouraging you as well to, if this is really what you want to do, then it's definitely worth it, right? And it all depends on you now, right, to determine that. Of course, for me, it is what has worked for me, All right, let's see. See Akshay. I hope I said that correctly. If you could announce the live schedule, then a little bit before, more people will be able to join. That is correct. I know. If I could schedule it well in advance, people will be able to join, and maybe to be more engaging, more interesting, more informative, and all that. That is correct. But know that it is right now. There's still time. I believe that over time there's a lot of things going on also, right? Like I said, my job schedule is sometimes it's 2 weeks on, 1 week on. It's kind of all over the place, right? And that would often affect my planning. But I felt like I needed to come live today. I felt like I had the opportunity, the time and energy and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I hope this has been beneficial. If it has been, please don't forget to drop a like on it. I'd love to see you guys next time. I'd love to chat with you guys next time. I'd love to, read your comment and all that. It does go a long way. Quick recap before I close it. All right. The first one, all right, scholarships is definitely one way to go, or grants. The second one is loans or financial aid. Okay. Third one is sponsorships. Okay. Scholarships. I think I mentioned that. Actually, I already mentioned that already. The third one or fourth one is cadet programs. Okay. And the next one is just more about building your connection, all right? Being close to the aviation people, right? People in the world of aviation. Being in that environment means that your chances of becoming a pilot increases, honestly. The fact that you're watching this video, if you're an aspiring pilot, you've been equipped with more information and knowledge. And with that information, of course, maybe you can do something with it, and that would help you, all right? Thank you guys. It's been great. I wish you guys a very lovely weekend, and of course a fantastic Friday evening wherever you are. All right. I'd love to see you guys next time, and have a good night.